All right, chapter 2, section 3, the beginning of agriculture. So we just learned in the last video that we were planting seeds, which to you may not seem like a big deal, but this is huge because we don't have to move around anymore. So first, societies that appeared, regions that had a lot of resources, villages near water, like we had talked about. And in Southwest Asia, this was called the Fertile Crescent, fertile meaning that can grow. And this was modern-day Turkey, and this is where the first society appears. So we're moving from hunting and gathering to farming. And in the Fertile Crescent near the Mediterranean Sea, there was a wealth of natural resources. So a bunch of societies started here. There was lots of seeds and wild grasses. And in the mountains, they were able to herd goats and sheep and other animals while growing those grasses nearby. So the grasses were the key ingredient here. Believe it or not, grass sounds pretty boring, but what grass can be under the category of is cereals like wheat and barley, and those are really food staples. And now we've got domesticated cattle and sheep who fed on these wild grasses. And domestication is a complicated term, but it means the process in which physical characteristics of plants and animals change because of us, because of humans. So what that means is something that might not grow in Traverse City, like cherries, if humans keep planting it there, it begins to adapt and grow here. That's domestication. Or an animal. So we've domesticated certain animals over time, birds, cats, etc. We've changed their environment and they adapt to it. And sometimes that change takes a lot of time, but that's domestication. So we began to domesticate these seeds because humans learned which ones were good and which ones weren't. So now we began to select which seeds we wanted to plant. So things that may not have dominated an area now do because we determined that. And 9,000 years ago, we began planting wheat and cultivating wheat. We now are building structures to store the food because we have a surplus. We are building houses right near where we're growing. And we continued to hunt a little bit, but we began to rely more on our domesticated plants and animals. So we were now what's called sedentary. Sedentary sounds like a complicated word, but it just means settled. We don't move around. We're sedentary. So some groups moved away and kept with the herding way of life, and those were people that kind of, you think of shepherds, those people that moved with the herds, the domesticated animals, pastoral nomads is what they're called. And pastoral nomads, they revolve around the herds and domesticated animals. So now the big question is, why did agriculture rise? Why did it take power? Well, people began to gain more knowledge about how to plant things, and people became smarter. It's like when you see someone do something, you can kind of learn from that and then do it better. So the last ice age ended, and then after that, the climate kind of remained stable. The temperatures kind of remained the same, kind of the seasons that we're used to now. So when that happens, the farmers were able to predict when to plant things, growing seasons, and they just got better at it. So in 10,000 BCE, before Common Era, every human was a hunter and gatherer. By 1 CE, so 10,000 years had passed, nearly everyone was either a farmer or a herder. So we had this shift that we talked about. And during this transition, many people began to gain knowledge on how to plant things better. And it first appeared in the Fertile Crescent, which I told you about, and through cultural diffusion. Cultural diffusion is a vocab word, and it means the spread of ideas. So cultural diffusion is spread of ideas from one society to another. And cultural diffusion, people helped each other out, and people got better at planting things in agriculture. So rice and millet were domesticated in China, and we get these different plants being domesticated in different areas, and basically the whole world shifts to agriculture. Now there were some impacts. We talked about the negative impacts in class, of societies and social classes, but there was also some other impacts as well. So we went back to stone and used it to make better tools for plowing, etc. We used the animals to help us, domesticated animals to help plow fields, and the expansion of agriculture changed how people interacted with the environment. Instead of drawing resources from an extensive territory, farmers were able to cultivate or farm a small area over and over again. And because of that, the rise of agriculture had a social impact. Population density, which means lots of people in a small area. We were able to build societies there, and kin groups came together to farm. And now, because we were sedentary or not moving, we were able to have more people with specializations, more people doing different things, working on pottery, beads, and clothing, etc. So now we have luxury goods. Because we have our food supplied, we can do the luxury goods, the wants, not the needs. So clothing, cultural, art, etc. We have time to work on all those other things. So it gave individuals power. We have wealth. If you owned land and had a lot of farmland, you were seen as wealthy. So now we have those social classes and people with wealth. So we were divided into groups based upon that. So the shift from hunting and gathering to agriculture is often called the agricultural revolution.